Imagine standing at the threshold of an ancient library, its doors heavy with the weight of forgotten knowledge. The air hums with the whispers of texts deemed too dangerous, too illuminating, too disruptive to remain in the hands of the many. Among these forbidden scrolls lies the Book of Enoch, a text so potent in its revelations that its very existence became a threat to the architectures of power and doctrine. To speak of Enoch is to speak of the unspoken, the celestial rebellions, the origins of corruption, the luminous secrets of beings who walked the line between divine and fallen. This is not merely a book, it is a key, one that unlocks doors the custodians of history have long tried to seal shut. The story of Enoch is the story of absence, of deliberate omission. It is a ghost that lingers in the margins of canonical scripture, a shadow cast by the light of suppressed truth. Why was it banished from the Bible? The answers are woven into the fabric of celestial politics, the struggle between revelation and control, between the divine mystery and the human institution. Enoch speaks of the Watchers, those towering figures of angelic descent who, in their defiance, bridge the realms of heaven and earth, bringing with them knowledge too terrible and too sublime for mortal hands. Their tale is one of transgression, but also of transcendence, of boundaries crossed, secrets spilled, and the irreversible mingling of the celestial and the earthly. To engage with the Book of Enoch is to step into a current of esoteric history that flows beneath the surface of Orthodox tradition. It is to ask why some stories are sanctified while others are silenced, why some voices are amplified while others are erased. The text itself is a fractal of meaning, revealing layer upon layer of cosmological drama, the fall of the angels, the birth of giants, the corruption of creation, and the promise of ultimate reckoning. It is a narrative that does not merely inform but transforms, shaking the foundations of how we understand evil, divinity, and the tangled web of free will. There is something almost alchemical about Enoch's forbidden wisdom. Like a philosopher's stone, it transmutes the lead of dogma into the gold of gnosis, challenging us to reconsider what we have been taught about the nature of sin, the origins of suffering, and the hidden hands that have shaped human destiny. The guardians of tradition feared it not because it was false, but because it was too true, too resonant with the deeper chords of cosmic reality. To read Enoch is to peer behind the veil, to see the gears of the celestial machine, and to recognize that the history of heaven and earth is far stranger, far more intricate than the simplified narratives we have inherited. Yet this is not merely an exercise in ancient history. The questions Enoch raises are timeless, echoing in the modern soul with unsettling urgency. What happens when knowledge is forbidden? Who decides what is sacred and what is heresy? And what does it mean for humanity when the stories of its origins are controlled, redacted, or erased? The silencing of Enoch is a mirror held up to our own world, where power still dictates what can be known, what can be said, what can be believed. So let us begin this journey not as passive observers, but as seekers stepping into the labyrinth of the forbidden. Let us walk the path of Enoch, through the fragments of a text that refuses to be forgotten, through the whispers of angels and the echoes of a fall that still reverberates across the ages. For in these pages, exiled, contested, yet enduring, we may find not only the secrets of the past, but also the keys to understanding the hidden structures of our present. To enter the world of the Book of Enoch is to step into a realm where the boundaries between heaven and earth blur, where the divine and the damned walk side by side, and where knowledge itself is both a gift and a curse. The text pulses with themes that are as vast as the cosmos and as intimate as the human soul. Themes that have been buried not because they lack truth, but because they threaten to unravel the tidy narratives that bind belief into obedience. At its heart, Enoch is a chronicle of rebellion, revelation, and the terrible beauty of free will, a story that forces us to confront the uncomfortable idea that the origins of evil may not lie where we have been taught to look. One of the most luminous and unsettling threads in Enoch's tapestry is the tale of the Watchers, those celestial beings who descended to earth, drawn by desire, pride, or perhaps something even more ineffable. They were not demons in the traditional sense, not mere agents of chaos, but something far more complex, entities who carried the fire of heaven into the clay of mortality. Their transgression was not merely one of disobedience, but of entanglement, of crossing a threshold that was never meant to be crossed. They took human wives, fathered the Nephilim, giants who walked the earth with the blood of angels in their veins, and taught humanity arts both wondrous and dangerous, the secrets of metallurgy, the enchantments of medicine, the movements of the stars. Here the text whispers a paradox. Knowledge, even divine knowledge, is not inherently pure. It can exalt or corrupt, illuminate or consume, depending on the hands that wield it. This duality, the sacred and the profane intertwined, runs like a river through Enoch's visions. The Watchers did not fall because they were evil, they fell because they dared. Their story forces us to ask, is the boundary between the righteous and the fallen as clear as we have been led to believe? Or is it a line drawn in the sand by those who claim the authority to define it? The text does not offer easy answers, but it does something far more profound. It complicates the narrative, revealing the celestial hierarchy not as a static order, but as a dynamic, even perilous interplay of wills. Then there is Enoch himself, the scribe of heaven, the man who walked with God and was taken. His role is pivotal, for he is both witness and participant, a mortal who traverses the realms of angels and returns with visions that shake the foundations of the world. His journey is one of ascent, literally and symbolically, through the layered heavens, each tier revealing deeper mysteries, grander architectures of divine justice and mercy. In these passages, the cosmos unfolds as a living, breathing entity, a vast courtroom where the deeds of angels and humans alike are weighed. Enoch's revelations are not just about the fate of the Watchers, but about the nature of existence itself, the interplay of light and shadow, the inevitability of judgment, and the promise of renewal beyond the wreckage of rebellion. But perhaps the most haunting theme in Enoch is the question of agency. Who truly is responsible for the corruption of the world? The Watchers, with their forbidden gifts, the humans who embrace those gifts without restraint, or the divine order that set the stage for such a collision? The text does not absolve anyone, and in that refusal, it becomes a mirror. It asks us to consider how much of the evil we decry is born from systems we uphold, from knowledge we crave but cannot control, from hierarchies we dare not question. And then there is the silence, the deliberate excision of Enoch from the canon, the act of forgetting masquerading as discernment. This too is a theme, perhaps the most potent of all. For the exclusion of Enoch speaks volumes about the politics of revelation, about who gets to decide what is holy and what is heresy. It is a reminder that sacred texts are not just spiritual documents, but artifacts of power, shaped by the hands that preserve them and the hands that suppress them. To read Enoch, then, is not just to engage with an ancient text, but to participate in an act of reclamation, to pull a thread that might unravel the tapestry of received wisdom and reveal the patterns hidden beneath. These are not abstract meditations. They pulse through history, through the struggles of mystics and rebels who have dared to seek beyond the sanctioned, through the whispers of every suppressed truth that refuses to stay buried. The Book of Enoch, in its exile, becomes a testament to the resilience of revelation, to the idea that some truths cannot be erased, only delayed. The Book of Enoch unfolds not as a straightforward chronicle, but as a living dreamscape where every image pulses with layered meaning, where the boundaries between history and prophecy dissolve into something more primordial. To read it is to wander through a symbolic forest where trees whisper secrets and stones remember the footsteps of angels. The text operates on multiple dimensions simultaneously, as celestial history, as psychological allegory, as a mirror held up to the eternal struggle between illumination and control. Consider the Watcher's descent not merely as an event, but as an archetype reverberating through time. Their fall from grace mirrors humanity's own paradoxical relationship with knowledge, how each leap forward in understanding carries both promise and peril. The forbidden arts they taught humanity, metallurgy, astrology, pharmacology, become symbols of civilization's double-edged gifts. We see this same tension today in our technological advancements, where each breakthrough in artificial intelligence or genetic engineering echoes that ancient transfer of dangerous knowledge from higher intelligences to mortal hands. The text suggests this pattern is not accidental but fundamental to our existence, written into the fabric of reality itself. The Nephilim, those hybrid offspring of angels and humans, emerge as powerful symbols of boundary crossing. Neither fully divine nor entirely mortal, they represent the disruptive potential that arises when categories are forcibly merged. Their violence and corruption reflect the instability that follows when natural orders are violated, a theme that finds modern parallels in our manipulation of ecosystems, our blurring of biological boundaries, our reckless tampering with forces we barely comprehend. Yet the text hints that these hybrid beings also carried a spark of something transcendent, suggesting that from chaos can emerge new possibilities, however terrifying their birth may be. Enoch's celestial journeys form perhaps the most profound symbolic layer. His ascent through the seven heavens becomes a map of consciousness expansion, each level representing stages of spiritual awakening. The first heavens show him the workings of natural phenomena, winds, stars, and weather patterns, suggesting the initial stage of understanding physical reality. As he ascends, the visions grow more abstract and terrifying. Prisons for fallen angels, chambers of cosmic judgment, the very throne of God itself. This progression mirrors the seeker's path from material observation to mystical revelation, with each new level of understanding demanding greater courage and discernment. The text's apocalyptic visions of coming judgment, of earth-shaking reckonings, operate not just as future predictions, but as eternal metaphors. The great flood that cleanses the world of corruption symbolizes the cyclical nature of destruction and renewal that characterizes all existence, from the death of stars to the collapse of civilizations. These cataclysms serve as reminders that no corrupted system persists forever, that there comes a moment when the accumulated weight of imbalance must be corrected, however violently. Perhaps most intriguing is the symbolic role of writing itself in the narrative. Enoch serves as heaven's scribe, recording the judgments against the watchers. This positions knowledge preservation as a sacred act, a counterforce against attempts to bury truth. The very existence of the text, despite centuries of suppression, testifies to the indestructibility of certain revelations, how they find ways to resurface when the time is ripe. The book becomes a metaphor for all forbidden knowledge that refuses to disappear, from Galileo's heretical astronomy to modern whistleblowing revelations. These symbolic narratives coalesce into a startling realization. The Book of Enoch is not just about ancient angels, but about the perpetual struggle between revelation and control that defines human history. Every age has its watchers, those who bring disruptive knowledge, and every age has its gatekeepers who try to suppress it. The text's enduring power lies in how it gives form to this eternal dynamic, allowing us to see our current knowledge revolutions as part of an ancient, ongoing story. The cosmic drama of the Book of Enoch might seem distant, a relic of ancient mysticism, but its echoes reverberate through our modern world in ways both subtle and profound. This is not merely a text to be studied. It is a lens through which we can examine the fundamental tensions of our time. The ethics of knowledge, the nature of power, and the perennial human struggle to navigate between revelation and responsibility. To engage with Enoch is to recognize that its themes are not confined to parchment but live in our laboratories, our governments, our digital landscapes, and even our personal moral dilemmas. Consider first the question of forbidden knowledge, the central thread of the Watcher's transgression. Today, we face our own versions of this ancient dilemma. The rapid advancement of artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and neurotechnology has placed unprecedented power in human hands, raising urgent questions about the ethics of discovery. Like the Watchers descending to share celestial secrets, modern scientists and technologists stand at a similar threshold. When does knowledge become too dangerous to disseminate? The Book of Enoch does not provide easy answers, but it offers a framework for contemplation. It suggests that knowledge divorced from wisdom, from a deeper understanding of consequence, can unleash forces that reshape the world in ways we cannot control. This is not an argument against progress, but rather a call to approach innovation with humility. to recognize that every leap forward carries with it the potential for both liberation and disruption. The Watcher's story also holds up a mirror to our contemporary struggles with power and corruption. The Nephilim, those hybrid beings born of angelic and human union, embody the consequences of unchecked ambition, of power wielded without accountability. In our world, we see parallels in the unchecked influence of corporations, governments, and even algorithms that operate beyond the reach of ethical scrutiny. The giants of Enoch's narrative might be seen as metaphors for the monopolies, the surveillance states, and the systemic injustices that loom over modern life. The text's warning is clear. When power becomes concentrated in the hands of those who are no longer tethered to moral or natural law, the result is societal imbalance, violence, and eventual collapse. The practical implication here is not passive resignation, but active vigilance, the need to question, to challenge, and to hold power accountable before it grows beyond human scale. Enoch's role as an intercessor, a bridge between the divine and the human, offers another lesson for our fragmented age. In a world where information is abundant, but wisdom is scarce, where voices clamor for attention, but few speak with clarity or moral authority, the need for mediators, for those who can translate higher truths into actionable insight, has never been greater. This is the role of the artist, the philosopher, the scientist, the activist, anyone who seeks to make the ineffable tangible, to bring light into the corners of ignorance and deception. Enoch's journey reminds us that truth-telling is not a passive act, but a sacred responsibility, one that often requires traversing uncomfortable realms and confronting forces that would prefer silence. On a personal level, the Book of Enoch invites introspection about our own relationship with knowledge and power. Each of us, in our own way, grapples with the temptation to play God, to manipulate, to control, to assert dominance over others or over nature itself. The text challenges us to ask, what are the forbidden arts we pursue without considering the consequences? Where do we cross lines in the name of progress, ambition, or even curiosity? And how do we reconcile the pursuit of enlightenment with the humility required to wield it justly? These are not abstract questions, but daily choices about how we use technology, how we consume information, how we influence those around us. Finally, the suppression of the Book of Enoch speaks directly to our current crisis of truth and censorship. In an era where information is weaponized, where narratives are controlled, and dissent is often marginalized, the text's history feels eerily contemporary. The forces that removed Enoch from the canon were not merely theological, they were political, designed to consolidate a certain vision of authority. Today, we see similar patterns in the way knowledge is gatekept, whether by governments, media conglomerates, or algorithmic curations of reality. The lesson here is not to embrace conspiracy, but to cultivate discernment, to recognize that the stories we are told are often shaped by unseen hands, and that truth is rarely found in the center of approved narratives. The practical integration of Enoch's wisdom, then, is not about decoding ancient prophecies, but about awakening to the living patterns it reveals. It calls us to navigate innovation with ethical foresight, recognizing that progress without conscience is perilous. Challenge concentrations of power that mirror the Nephilim's disruptive dominance. Embrace the role of truth-bearers in a world that often prefers comfortable illusions. Interrogate our own complicity in systems of exploitation or deception. Seek out suppressed voices and marginalized wisdom, knowing that truth often resides at the edges. In doing so, we honor the spirit of Enoch, not as passive recipients of dogma, but as active participants in the unfolding story of knowledge, power, and redemption. The journey through the Book of Enoch does not conclude. It reverberates. Like a stone cast into the waters of time, its ripples disturb the surface of our certainties, inviting us to peer into depths we had ignored. This is not merely an ancient text, but a living echo, a mirror reflecting our own era's struggles with power, knowledge, and the sacred. To engage with Enoch is to recognize that the forces which sought to silence it, fear of disruption, the policing of truth, the terror of unbridled revelation, are the same forces that govern the suppression of uncomfortable truths today. The question is no longer why Enoch was banned, but what else remains hidden, and how we might reclaim the courage to seek it. There is a transformational alchemy in this recognition. The Watcher's story is not just about fallen angels. It is about the perennial human condition, our own oscillation between aspiration and overreach, between enlightenment and hubris. We stand today at our own celestial crossroads, wielding technologies and knowledge that would appear divine to our ancestors. The same existential choice confronts us. Will we repeat the cycle of transgression and collapse, or will we chart a new path where wisdom tempers power? Enoch's legacy is not a warning against seeking, but against seeking without seeing, without understanding the cost of what we uncover and the responsibility that comes with it. This is where the text transcends history and becomes a call to action. The act of reading Enoch today is itself subversive, a quiet defiance against those who would dictate what can be known. But beyond intellectual rebellion, it demands something more profound, a realignment of how we live. If the Watchers fell through their failure to reconcile knowledge with ethics, then our task is to forge that reconciliation in our own domains. For scientists, it means research tempered by moral clarity. For artists, creation that unveils without destroying. For citizens, the vigilance to question the stories fed to us. The book's ultimate lesson is that apocalypse is not just an event, but a lens, a way of seeing the fractures in our world before they widen into chasms. The transformational call of Enoch is thus threefold: see, remember, rebuild. First, see clearly the architectures of power and knowledge around you, the modern equivalents of angelic hierarchies and forbidden arts. Recognize where truth is curated and where voices are silenced. Second, remember that this is an ancient pattern, not an aberration, and that throughout history, the most potent truths often emerge from the margins. Carry this memory as armor against despair. Finally, rebuild, not naively, but with the hard-won wisdom of those who understand both the splendor and danger of revelation. Rebuild your relationship with technology, with power, with the sacred, so that the future we create does not repeat the falls of the past. The Book of Enoch returns to us now because we are ready, or perhaps because we have no other choice. In an age of artificial intelligences we cannot fully control, of climate systems pushed to the brink, of informational ecosystems that distort reality, we are living the text's central drama. The forbidden has become the inevitable. Our task is not to retreat from knowledge, but to approach it as Enoch did, with awe, with humility, and with the unwavering commitment to bear witness no matter the cost. This is the text's final gift, the realization that revelation and responsibility are inseparable, that to know is to be accountable, and that the true measure of enlightenment lies not in what we discover, but in what we do with it. The call is yours now. Will you listen?